Did you know there's more millionaires in real estate than any other asset class out there? Yes, it's actually true. Many of my friends, I've watched them go from $20,000 to $20 million of real estate, or I've watched them go from $1,000 wholesaling properties to $1 million in real estate. It is one of the most feasible and most obtainable things that you can do in any asset class that I've ever seen. And a lot of the times, it doesn't take a lot of employees, a lot of overhead, and a lot of crazy business and marketing ideas to achieve a lot of these goals. You can go right out on MLS. You can do wholesaling. There's a lot of things that you can do. And what you'll find out in real estate is that if you're willing to put in the hard work, you will get the great returns with that side by side with the amount of work that you're willing to put into it.
Yeah, there's certainly not a better asset class or investment vehicle than real estate. And I think both of us can attest to this. In a second, we're going to go through Ian's story of how he got from $15,000 in his pocket to $50 million in real estate in actually a pretty short period of time. If you don't know me, I'm Jason Balin from Hard Money Bankers. This is Ian Horowitz from Equity Warehouse. We both are active real estate investors, hard money lenders. We invest in a lot of different asset classes, mostly in the real estate investing space. That's why we are qualified to talk about this. And again, we only discuss things that we have personal experiences with. So let's go through your portfolio in general. What year did you start at that $15,000 mark? And, describe maybe that first asset that is obviously very different than your current assets.
Yeah, so let's just go take a ride back. We've talked about a lot of these on our podcast, but we really want to formalize it in a video here. So for those of you that don't know me, in 2013, I was a fireman for the city of Baltimore, and I started investing in real estate. I had to find something that was, what can I do if I die? What can I do if I get incapacitated at work? What can I do while I'm asleep at work that doesn't take a lot of overhead? And, we were working landscaping and side jobs and everything else. And I was like, hey, man, there has to be a better way. And that's when we stumbled on real estate. And we bought our first house. I used $15,000 of our own money with very, very limited credit. I mean, I'm talking like a 550 credit score. I borrowed hard money at insane rates. And I used the last $15,000 I had to buy a rental property in the heart of East Baltimore that produced me $1,250 a month, ultimately starting our investing careers.
And that's typically the stories of a lot of real estate investors. They start with one asset and then they realize that, hey, this is working. Like, I'm making a few $100s a month in a rental property. I flipped a house and I made $10,000 or $20,000. There's other people that we know that have made hundreds of thousands of dollars on their first deal. Shit, there's one real estate investor we know that started buying apartment buildings. It was the first time ever. He didn't even start at lower asset classes. He started with an apartment building, made $1 million on his first deal. Pretty crazy. But I think your story is very similar to a lot of others that want either a side hustle or side income, or they want, they know that there must be a better way to do so. And real estate investing, in essence, has helped them. And, one kind of tip or trick related to starting as a real estate investor is you got to figure out what resources you have access to, what type of capital you potentially have access to. Do you have time? Do you have money? Who's going to do the heavy lifting? There's a lot of moving pieces in it. Listen, it's not brain surgery. It's not the hardest. It's not like being an astronaut. It's not the hardest thing in the world. But that being said, you got to put in the time to learn. You got to figure out realistically what you want to do and what type of capital resources you have. Like, it's going to be challenging to buy millions of dollars of real estate overnight if you don't have any capital and you don't have good credit. Could it be done? Absolutely. But it's just going to be challenging. So a lot of real estate investors, like the both of us, you start with what's affordable. How much cash do you have? Can you get a loan from a bank or from a hard money or from a private lender? You start something achievable, maybe in a neighborhood that at a price point that you feel like you can afford, and then you work your way up, right? I mean, think about this. Think about, if you're familiar with the term 1031, that's a different topic, obviously, but think about it. Like, you start with a real estate investor starts with $100,000. They, in essence, turn that to maybe it's worth $200,000. They do a 1031, a few years down the road, and then you go from a $100,000 portfolio to a $300,000 portfolio to $1 million portfolio to a $3 million portfolio to a $10 million portfolio. Like it's very achievable, just like a snowball. It might take a little bit of time. When I say it takes a little bit of time, like that doesn't mean like when you retire in 50 years, if you're younger. Like it means like, hey, it might take a few years, right? Everyone's got a few years in order to be able to be successful and able to make, you know, some additional money. And I think that's an important aspect, that everybody wants the shiny objects and everybody wants the, you know, do little work and make a lot of money tomorrow. Everybody wants to get paid tomorrow, right? But tomorrow, you know, happens quicker than you think, right? Right? It happens quicker than you think. I mean, if Ian looks back, I mean, I think that was 8 years ago, 8 years in the running. He'll correct me if I'm wrong, but like that probably felt like yesterday to him, right? Eight years from now is an eternity, but 8 years ago felt like yesterday. So block and tackle little things every single day. So let's talk about your transitions from different asset classes over the years.
Yeah. So one thing that we were able to do as we grew, and as Jason just alluded to, my business partner did not have any capital to start with. He got jammed in the 2008 financial crisis. So he went out and started wholesaling. And he had something that I wanted to learn about. I was doing something that he wanted to learn about. So then we joined forces. We were childhood friends, but we were also able to start working together because he was able to produce leads. I had the wherewithal on how to fix, sell, or rent them out. And we were able to navigate this process all the way through, allowing us to grow a portfolio. But then as we continue to grow this portfolio, what we found out was we got really good at one thing: acquiring deals and executing on them. And what that did was it lent us to be able to jump the asset class. There's this big barrier. And maybe one day when we're like professional YouTubers, we'll have like all these links of like how to jump from commercial to single family or single family to commercial. We put this thing in our head that we couldn't do that. But what we found out was it was just reapplying the principles that we learned executing on single family real estate over and over and over and over again. We did wholesale deals, we did flips, we did single family rentals, and we did them over and over and over again. So then when we did find a 7-unit apartment building, it's like, well, this is 7 houses at once with one roof. Cool. Did that one. Then it was 34 units. Cool. It's 34 units under 3 roofs. We can handle that. Then we got a 76 unit. Again, it was just doing what we did really well and applying it to the next asset class. And from there, getting into the commercial world, it allowed us to execute on some industrial space, on self-storage at a very high level, and continue to have massive growth. It allowed us to continue to build our snowball. Yeah, that little piece of the single family world fell off, right? But we kept rolling down the hill. And guess what? At some point, that snow packed back in. We just wholesaled a deal this past year in 2023. One phone call. Someone called us up. I have a house in this location in Baltimore City. What, will you buy it for me? Absolutely. Turned around and made 80 grand the next day executing, because we didn't forget where we came from. Everything that you learn along the way is a tool in the toolbox. We are learning every day, and we're applying those skill sets every day and not forgetting where we came from and looking at the best opportunity that's presented to us that has allowed us to build a $70 million portfolio as it sits today.
Yeah, and that's not going to happen overnight, right? Just like a snowball doesn't create maximum velocity overnight. It takes time, right? Think about whatever skill set that you have, right? Like everyone's got skills, right? They might be skills that you like, they might be skills that you don't like, but everyone's got skills. You didn't wake up with that skill overnight, right? You didn't go to work or go to school and learn that overnight. It took time, right? If you graduated high school, you were in school for 12 years, building and growing and learning and developing, right? It's similar. Like real estate investing takes time to do, but it's super achievable, and it's a hell of a lot more quicker than most other types of stuff or business building stuff, and it's very, very doable. And again, you got to be smart, you got to be responsible. You can't just dive into this thing and overnight, all of a sudden, there's a lot of folks that have had success in real estate and then they lose it all because they didn't do it based on the right fundamentals at the beginning. We've been in a very interesting real estate market over the last decade, and in essence, have continuing to grow and grow and grow. So there's a lot of real estate investors that have, I don't want to use the term lucky because, everyone creates their own luck, but they were ambitious enough to go out there and buy real estate, and in essence, it appreciated in value, which works great. But even if you're not in an appreciating real estate market, there's still opportunity to purchase real estate by doing it, the right way, finding the right property, using the right debt service, and the right funding on the particular deal. But I think what Ian mentioned, reason for his success, and what a lot of people and a lot of our friends real estate investing success is they started small and they worked their way up and they created a snowball. And we reference that snowball a lot because I think it's extremely powerful. But they started small. Ian started with a little crappy single family house or row house, and then he worked his way up to a massive, several $100,000 self-storage unit portfolio, right? And he probably couldn't have just skipped all those other steps to get to that bigger portfolio. He needed the foundation and the ongoing education and fundamentals and relationships and resources to get to that level.
Yep. And then there was also the velocity of capital. And we've talked about velocity of capital from selling. One other success point that I wanted to discuss was figuring out how to generate cash. We figured out how to navigate the banking landscape to recap our funds, to keep reapplying that money over and over and over again. The first one, I used $15,000 of my own money. I then refinanced that property to then pull most of that cash back out to go buy the next deal and do it again and then again and again, and start utilizing the cash flow that was coming in side by side with refinancing the properties and bringing the two together and reinvesting into our business to a point that it was able to produce dividends. Sure, we had plenty of times where we had equity pops from selling, doing flips or wholesale deals and bringing that cash in the front door. But what we found out was if we could continue to buy and refinance and have limited exposure with our capital out and continue to operate the deals, like Jason said, we're bringing our capital back in. We're redeploying it into a new deal, number one. Number two, we're paying principal down every single month. The bank's willing to lend us all this money that I'm allowed to pay back over time. So I know what my net worth is in 30 years. I just got to pay all these loans off, right? I know I pay all these loans off in 20 to 30 years. I will be worth X because we own all these properties. So don't let that, point fall by the wayside. Yes, we did. We executed at a high level on one asset class, but side by side with that, we executed on the financing piece that allowed us to continue to grow our company. So those are probably two key points that you want to look at when you're getting started to go from 15 to 50 million. Being bankable and being able to execute on deals, to us, were the two most important things. There's deals all around you. I promise you today, if you want to find a deal, there is one out there for you. You're just not looking hard enough. There are deals everywhere. That's the easiest thing to overcome. Executing and financing are probably the two biggest challenges out there that you need to figure out.
Yep. And to sum that up, finding good deals, finding capital, and execution, right? You got to start somewhere. You got to start with education, work your way up, educate yourself, educate, take action, start with a property that you're comfortable with, right? It could be, and if it's a big project and you're very well capitalized, start with a bigger project if you want to. You don't necessarily have to. Figure out what resources that you have, what type of capital stack they have access to, and educate yourself. Hey guys, do us a favor. If you like this content, smash that thumbs up button, smash that like button. We certainly appreciate it. Ian and I love talking about real estate. In essence, we do it every day offline. So, we love hopping on here and sharing our experiences with everybody, and nothing more we'd appreciate than spreading the word.